I just built the new top-ranked Pokemon for the Open Ultra League, and today I'm going to be testing it out to see if it lives up to the hype. The PvPoke rankings for the Ultra League did update with the release of Corviknight, leaving XL Corviknight alone at the top. Now, this Pokemon does require a heavy XL candy investment, so through a ton of magnetic lures and maxing out my GVL sets during Go Battle Weekend almost every day, and a lot of trades, I was able to get the required XLs. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at XL Corviknight for the first time in the Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, leading Shadow Feraligatr into Clefable. Obviously, I would much prefer to see Clefable with my backline. Opponent is going to safe switch into a Miltank, and I am incredibly happy that the Clefable is now going to get stuck on either my Tentacruel or on Corviknight. Opponent is going to be hit with Hydro Cannon after Hydro Cannon in this matchup. The fact that they switched it in tells me it's very likely they're going to be on Thunderbolt. And Thunderbolt they are, so they are going to fire off that move, grabbing a shield, but I'm able to build up to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Now this will guarantee if they want a shield, they're going to have to shield twice. I'm very fine conceding the free rollout there in exchange for shield advantage. Opponent now going to fire off a move. I'm very okay letting this go. And now I can send in the star of the show. That is Corviknight. Corviknight will take super effective damage from Thunderbolt, but even so, Thunderbolt not even going to do half, as XL Corviknight does have a ton of bulk in the Ultra League. What is the opponent going to be bringing in here? It's the Clefable, and the fact that they're bringing a Clefable into a Corviknight means it appears they are core broken in the back. Moonblast is going to connect. I'm going to bank a ton of energy, switch into Tentacruel, and in the back, that is not what I was expecting to see in the Ultra League, a Shadow Rhyperior. These battles were done above Legend Elo. I was able to climb up to right around top 250 in the world with the two Corviknight teams that I'll be showcasing. In this instance, it doesn't matter if a Breaking Swipe debuff happens, Scald's still going to one-shot Shadow Rhyperior. Moonblast, really not going to cut it. I can go for the Scald just to burn the switch timer, and then I'm going to be able to take the win with Corviknight. As I can switch with Corviknight, combo play with the Sky Attack. Sky Attack is going to KO Clefable, and we're able to take a Game 1 win. Moving into game number 2, great lead, Shadow Feraligatr into Drifblim. Opponent is going to safe switch into Primeape. Primeape going for the Rage Fist right away. This does prevent me from denying them a turn because they did throw first. However, I'm more than happy to fire off the Hydro Cannon, grab the shield, and then send in Tentacruel. Tentacruel is going to do great here. They're going to have to spam out Rage Fist after Rage Fist, and even though they're now double boosted, Tentacruel is still completely not worried about these Karate Chops whatsoever. They're going to go for yet another Rage Fist. I'm firing off the Scald, and are they really going to double shield here? No, they are not. Down goes Primeape. Opponent is going to bring in the Drifblim, and I'm going to farm up to bluff a Blizzard. I'm going to continue farming. They get worried about the Blizzard, and that forces their energy. And now they don't have a lot of residual energy, which is terrific for me. In the back is Pangoro, and now I get to send in Corviknight. For XL Corviknight, I do think that the Sky Attack payback moveset is going to be the way to go. I did test Legacy Ironhead initially, but honestly found there were a lot of situations where a payback would have been helpful in the Ultra League. Now here, I'm up a shield, so I'm just in a completely winning position. Opponent baited with the Night Slash first, I no-shielded it. They're going to go for the back-to-back close combat. I believe this was actually one short of the close combat, but I end up shielding anyway. They bring in Drifblim. I could have paybacked there, but I thought banking the Sky Attack was more valuable. So the opponent will go for the Icy Wind. I'm now going to be debuffed. I realize that I'm too low to get to the Ice Beam, so instead, I'm just going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to get them pretty low. I can bring back in the Corviknight, go for the Sky Attack, as now they're low enough where Sky Attack will be enough to KO. And it's going to be a race here, but with the residual energy that I have on Corviknight, we will be able to outpace the very speedy Pangoro. Sky Attack picks up the KO, and that's a good game. We move to match number 3, Shadow Feraligatr into another Clefable. So again, I definitely prefer to see the Clefable in the back, but overall not a bad Pokemon to see. Here I am going to play to a CMP tie versus the Clefable, firing off the Hydro Cannon. Clefable knows they can live 1. I do survive a Moonblast, but it does do quite a lot of damage, so I will end up committing the shield. And now I'm going to look to overfarm quite substantially, going for the Hydro Cannon and just looking to put some pressure on my opponent. So Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. I switch into the Corviknight and get the catch. This is very, very nice. As Corviknight, that Moonblast not going to do a whole lot. In comes Shadow Steelix, and suddenly I'm reminded, oh, I am triple weak to Steelix. I mean, technically my best answer is Corviknight. Here, something very unfortunate happens. A, my opponent is running Breaking Swipe, and B, they get the 50-50 debuff. If they didn't get the debuff, then I could actually KO them with this second payback. But unfortunately, due to the attack drop, my opponent is going to get a massive farm down as a result. In comes Feraligatr. They're close to an Earthquake, but they don't have enough energy, so it will be the Psychic Fangs. I overfarm by 1 and play to the CMP tie, denying their second move. So Hydro Cannon will finally KO the Steelix. It's Gastrodon in the back, and unfortunately, this game is going to be a loss. Now, after this game, I did end up switching the team for the remainder of the sets. So Tentacruel does end up hitting the bench, and we have a new third Pokemon that is going to allow me to have better play if the team does encounter Thunderfang Steelix. Because if you see Steelix on the lead, you can bring in Corviknight, and with Sand Attack and Payback, it can definitely hold its own. But as we see here, unfortunately with the Gastrodon third, I'm just not going to be able to win. But I did end up switching the third Pokemon, and that proved to be very, very beneficial. So now we have the adjusted team, and it's goodbye Tentacruel, hello Giratina. But in this match, we're off to an amazing start. Feraligatr into Talonflame. The Talonflame is staying in, which is an absolute shock. Hydro Cannon, shielded, they undertap a move, and I'm more than happy to shield as Feraligatr dramatically outpaces Talonflame. They save switch into Cresselia, and they're about to have a truly terrible day as Cresselia is about to get completely obliterated by Corviknight. I catch the Grass Knot, saving a ton of energy on my Feraligatr, and now this is another situation where Payback will be able to hit for super effective damage. They are going to fire off another Grass Knot. They're at this point just trying to burn the clock. They know any move they throw is not going to do a lot of damage, and Grass Knot is their cheapest move when it comes to burning the switch timer. Their final Pokemon is revealed to be Registeel. I bank a ton of energy on Corviknight, basically having 100 energy in reserve, and now I can bring in Giratina. But this is a Flash Cannon Registeel, so we're seeing some old meta Pokemon from this opponent on the leaderboards, and they're also bringing out the Flash Cannon tech as well. Shadow Sneak will slowly add up over time. Usually, Giratina is able to win this matchup just by virtue of walling the Registeel, but since this Registeel, unfortunately, is not running the usual moveset, it's a bit of a complicating factor. They bring in the Talonflame, my switch clock wasn't quite up, so I stall as long as possible, and now I get to bring in Feraligatr. Feraligatr is going to be shielding up as they go for the fly, and now I can throw 2 Shadow Claws and fire off the Hydro Cannon right before they get their next move. So Hydro Cannon is going to deliver the knockout. In comes Cresselia, and Cresselia will be able to KO Feraligatr. In this instance, if I bring Corviknight, they're highly likely to try and snipe with Registeel, so I bring in the Giratina. They insta-swap in the Registeel, expecting it's the Corviknight, but there's no Corviknight to be seen here. Instead, it's the Giratina, and now I can bring in the Corviknight and go for a nice little cheeky combo play. So Sky Attack will KO. This Cresselia just cannot escape Corviknight, and the opponent will concede the match. Shadow Feraligatr versus Zygarde. This is a great lead for Feraligatr. Feraligatr can of course win this just going straight Ice Beam double super effective. It's not enough to one-shot, but if they try and call the bait, they will get absolutely rocked. Crunch, not going to be mattering whatsoever. They're actually on Bulldoze. Bulldoze is an incredibly pathetic move when it comes to damage. In comes Licky Licky, and honestly, this is great. I'm going to be able to put the Corviknight on the Licky Licky, and most Licky Licky in the Ultra League are on Earthquake instead of Shadow Ball, so their charge moves should, in theory, be walled. Body Slam is going to KO. In comes Corviknight. In the back is Gastrodon, and that is not a response to Corviknight at all. Mud Slaps are going to be resisted, and in the Ultra League, Corviknight is going to tank resisted hits for days. So I'm very fine no shielding in this matchup. This Gastrodon is actually on Water Pulse, which does hit for neutral, but what that means is their charge attacks are walled by the Giratina. So now I just bank a move, send in the Giratina, they're forced to Water Pulse a Giratina, and that's a pretty unfortunate feeling. In comes Licky Licky, and Licky Licky Giratina's not going to have a favorable matchup here, but I have a big energy lead, I've already got some damage onto them, and I have shields to hide behind. So at this point, this should just be a completely one game. A charge attack will finally come out from the Licky Licky, and I am going to protect health on the Giratina. It is the Body Slam bait, I can go for another Dragon Claw, and I do still have the move available on Corviknight for when I need it later on. They shield, they switch into Gastrodon, and I'm very okay staying in here with the Giratina because I know the Giratina is going to be a wall to the charge attacks from the Gastrodon. Gastrodon firing off one final charge attack. It is going to be the Body Slam, and now once Licky Licky comes in, I go for the Dragon Claw. This won't quite KO, so I should be able to just switch in the Corviknight after they shield, and Sky Attack will be more than enough to secure the win. So Corviknight's bulk being a definite plus in that game, and also just typing wise, it's going to do amazingly against Gastrodon. We've got a Fairy type on the lead in the next match. Feraligatr into Weezing. Weezing is going to make a nice catch as my opponent catches onto their own Feraligatr. Now this is a little bit tricky as this team does not have a Feraligatr answer. So I'm honestly forced to stay in here. I am going to be firing off Hydro Cannons in this matchup. That's going to get my opponent very low. I know that I can survive their Hydro Cannon. Typically, if I was going to bring in one of my back Pokemon into Feraligatr, it would have to be the Giratina. And that's because unfortunately, Corviknight does not have a winning matchup against Feraligatr. Feraligatr is so neutrally dominant. Here I make the Hydro Cannon, opponent making all the catches as they're able to catch a Hydro Cannon onto Walrein. So Walrein, not a particularly fun Pokemon for Giratina to see. I bank a Hydro Cannon for later and send in Corviknight. And this is a strength of Corviknight. It's very bulky. It's going to be able to take a lot of hits, and I'm going to need it to take a lot of hits here. Walrein is going to be firing off Icicle Spear after Icicle Spear. Unfortunately, Sand Attack is very, very underwhelming on Corviknight in the Ultra League. You're not really going to be able to farm most things down, and that means that Corviknight, which has a terrifying 75% zero shield meta win rate, when shields are up in the 2 shield, I believe its win rate is actually negative. Here, I am just going to let it go because I'm going to need 2 shields and a Giratina if I want a chance to win this game. My win conditions in this game are as follows. They do not have Play Rough, which forces them to go for Brutal Swing, because Brutal Swing is not a great charge attack, and the fact that I'm going to be able to grab the shields away from my opponent and eventually snipe down with a Hydro Cannon. I am forced to shield. Weezing is blazingly fast. I did consider a Dragon Claw bait, but felt if my opponent decided to call it, it would be too risky. So I'm farming up, and now this is a bit of the mind game of Go Battle League. My opponent at this point is well aware of my win con. My win con is to snipe, so I'm going to predict that they switch. I stay in, they switch out, predicting the snipe with the Hydro Cannon, and now I just win the game. Because I always have the Hydro Cannon loaded, and Feraligatr is going to win CMP. My opponent tries to farm down, it's a simultaneous KO, so by not combo playing in the anticipated moment, I was actually able to get the win. Good lead in the next match, Shadow Feraligatr versus Zygarde. Versus Zygarde, again, I'm just never going to be baiting. I like full sending here to put some pressure on the opponent. Opponent will end up committing the shield. Feraligatr only now below half HP, and I'm already almost at another Ice Beam. Zygarde full sends an Outrage. They're looking to deal some serious damage. They save switch into their own Feraligatr, and this is bad. My backline here, I don't have an answer to a Feraligatr save switch. Corviknight loses, so does Giratina. So my game plan here is I'm going to bring in the Giratina, soft lose it, and then just try and get it as low as possible, and then hopefully I will be able to sweep in the end game with a ton of Feraligatr energy and Corviknight. Feraligatr goes for the Hydro Cannon, but this is the non-Shadow Feraligatr. That's not going to be enough to knock out. So I get to land the Dragon Claw, and now they're going to switch, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Talonflame, but I get to aggressively switch back into Feraligatr. Feraligatr Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. Here, I was thinking Hydro Cannon would KO, so I threw 1 in the move so the Incinerate wouldn't register, but as it turns out, Talonflame barely hangs on there, which is not the most ideal, so I will commit the shield, get the claw down. Opponent brings in Feraligatr, but I know at this point that my Corviknight will be able to win the zeros versus the Zygarde. The Zygarde has taken a little bit of damage already throughout the course of the match. In comes Corviknight, and Corviknight in the zeros is a demon. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the final match, picking up a bad lead for Feraligatr into Tentacruel. I save switch into Corviknight. Opponent is going to respond with Pangoro, but they were a bit slow on the swap, so they did give me a healthy energy head start. This final battle, I believe, encapsulates what I believe is the biggest weakness of Corviknight in the Ultra League. And that is, anytime 2 shields are up for you and your opponent, Corviknight is going to struggle mightily. Even though they gave me a pretty big energy head start, this Pangoro is going to be able to cleanly win the 2 shield. I will fire off the Sky Attack, but now I'm low enough where I'm getting very, very close to Night Slash range, so my opponent will be able to outpace and then just win the 2s, which is very unfortunate. They're going to go for the Night Slash, but here my opponent actually makes a game-losing misplay. My best guess is that they thought that I had Iron Head, because if I had Iron Head, I may have been able to outpace, but with Sky Attack, I could not. There, they go for the Brave Bird into Feraligatr, but Feraligatr will not be denied. Holding on, picking up the KO. Back in comes Pangoro, but I banked the Sky Attack for later. So this is a situation where I very easily could have lost switch and Pangoro would have been an absolute nightmare for my team to deal with. But since my opponent didn't have the familiarity with the matchup knowledge, they ended up switching out, and that misplay put me in a winning position. Here, I believe I did try Steelix as the third for a battle or two. Steelix, I don't think is a good third for this team, as it makes a team that's already very weak to fighters even weaker to fighters, so I do not recommend Steelix as the third. I just wanted to include this battle as an example of a battle that once people get more familiar with Corviknight, I will not be winning, because my opponents will be able to play better and know the matchups, but in this instance, because it's a newer Pokemon, I was able to get the win. So now the moment we have been waiting for, the official review of XL Corviknight. Now Corviknight, as I mentioned, is now rank 1 on PV Poke in the Ultra League. And it does actually have a slightly higher win rate with the moveset that I'm running, Sky Attack Payback, than the recommended moveset, which is Iron Head Sky Attack. One thing that I do want to note that I mentioned earlier is this Pokemon has an extreme difference in win rates depending on shielding scenarios. In the zeros, it has a 75% meta win rate. So if you're able to get it in the zeros, it's going to put in a tremendous amount of work. However, the issues arise when shields are up. Corviknight, the new #1 ranked Pokemon on PV Poke, has a losing record in the 2 shield. And some of these losses in the 2s are honestly a bit shocking. It gets absolutely manhandled in the 2 shield by basically any fighter. Primeape, Annihilate, Pangoro, they're all going to absolutely crush Corviknight in the 2s unless the Corviknight has a pretty significant energy head start. Additionally, Malamar is actually a 2 shield loss just because of the fact that Sand Attack does not do a lot of damage. So honestly, in my final review, I think it's probably more of a top 20, top 30 Ultra League mon. I don't believe it's worth its #1 ranking. I was able to go quite positive with it. As I mentioned, I climbed from off of leaderboards to about top 250 in the world, but I definitely felt that the teammates that I used were helping to cover for a lot of those deficiencies, namely the fact that it struggles a lot in the 2 shield. So if you're going to build XL Corviknight, and it's not a Pokemon that I don't recommend building, you're going to have to make sure that you set up a team and a strategy that's good at getting shields down, as this thing is deadly in the 0 shield. A 75% win rate is massive, but if you put it in positions where shields are up in the 2 shield, it does have a losing record. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys, oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.